Warning, this video is not objective in any way. It is full-fledged, unfiltered propaganda. Proceed with caution and watch at your own risk. Brock Purdy is the ultimate underdog. He was the last overall pick in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant. He started off his rookie season as the third-string quarterback behind Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, and he went to school at Iowa State. I mean, what loser supports Iowa State? I don't know what you're looking at. In order to properly tell the Brock Purdy ultimate underdog story, we need to start off from the very beginning of life. I'm just kidding. We're starting off from when he was in high school. As you may or may not know, Brock Purdy played high school football for the Perry Pumas, located in Gilbert, Arizona, which is basically the desert with infrastructure. Purdy absolutely cooked his opponents, tossing 57 touchdowns to only 9 interceptions in his senior year, winning the Arizona Gatorade Player of the Year award. Purdy seemed primed for greatness. 24/7 Sports listed him as a 3-star recruit, but once recruiters started to use up their scouting points, they realized that this man was a gem. A bunch of schools came calling, such as Boise State and their hideous blue field, UCF, who was coming off of their Mickey Mouse undefeated season, SEC homer Texas A&M, and even Nick Saban in Alabama brought Purdy in for a visit. But there was only one school that had an A+ playing time grade, and that was the Iowa State freaking Cyclones, baby. On February 7th, 2018, Purdy committed to the Cyclones. Little did everyone know that this day would mark the beginning of a 4-year whirlwind of absolute insanity. In 2017, Iowa State football had a magical season. It was head coach Matt Campbell's second year, and the Cyclones were showing a lot of progress, despite a 2-2 start to the season. However, Iowa State would put the college football world on notice, as on October 7th, 2017, the Cyclones marched into Norman, Oklahoma, and upset Baker Mayfield and the number 3 ranked Oklahoma Sooners. Iowa State quarterback Kyle Kempt threw an absolute dime to Allen Lazard to seal this one. A few weeks later, Iowa State would upset number 4 TCU at Jack Trice Stadium as the Cinderella season would continue. Unfortunately, they would go on to lose the last 3 out of their 4 games in typical Iowa State fashion and regress to a 7-5 finish. But this was really good for ISU, as they were bowl eligible for the first time since 2012 and would go on to defeat Memphis in the Liberty Bowl, setting these expectations sky high for 2018. Purdy would start off his freshman season in 2018 as the 3rd-string quarterback on the depth chart, behind Kyle Kempt and Zeb Noland. Kempt would get injured in the Iowa game, and Noland would take over the starting job for the next 4 games. Purdy actually did get 1 snap against Akron, where he ran for a negative yard. Iowa State started off 2018 with a 1-3 record, and were heading into Stillwater for a matchup against the 25th-ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. Also, star running back David Montgomery was out for this one, so even worse. Noland would get the start once again, but he only attempted 2 passes before it happened. Matt Campbell decided to roll the dice and put in the true freshman. Purdy would make an impact immediately, showing off his dual threat ability, and would go on to throw a beautiful touchdown pass to Hakeem Butler, giving Iowa State a lead they would never lose. Purdy would go on to throw dime after dime. He spread the wealth too, as all 4 of his touchdown passes went to different receivers. Also, he ran for 84 yards, which has to be a career high. It actually isn't, but we'll just go with that for the joke. Iowa State would go on to win 48-42, and the trajectory of their season would dramatically shift from this point. The next week, Iowa State would host the 6th-ranked West Virginia Mountaineers, and this one wasn't even close. Iowa State would go on to upset West Virginia 30-14. Purdy completed 18 out of his 25 passes, threw for 254 yards and 3 touchdowns. This game not only brought the Cyclones back to 500, but it also birthed the phrase Brocktober, which is October, but, well, Brock. Iowa State fans around this time also developed 2 nicknames for the true freshman, such as Corn Jesus and, well, yeah, this one. I'm not going to say this one. The momentum from Purdy's first 2 games really started to carry over to the rest of the team, as for the next 3 games on their schedule, The Cyclones would go on to win all three in pretty convincing fashion. The last of those 3 games was against Baylor, and this one is notable, well, because this happened.
It looks like Chris Miller again is right there in the mix for Baylor.
Oh, you see there's a punch thrown.
More punches thrown, yeah. Well, he'll be gone. That's Dave.
So that fight is kind of lame looking back on it. In 2018, though, I thought it was cool. My main point about this is that I just love David Montgomery. Iowa State's win against Baylor would put them at a 6-3 record heading into Austin for a matchup against Texas. Unfortunately, David Montgomery, or should I say David Montgomery, was suspended for this one. I actually remember this game vividly, not because of what happened in it. In fact, I didn't even watch it, and that was because it was on stupid Longhorn Network. And I am so glad Texas is no longer the Big 12 for a lot of reasons, but Longhorn Network is at the top. Okay, we talk about ESPN's SEC bias all the time, right? But man, they really had a hard-on for Texas for way longer, giving them their own network, seriously. And I believe also it was required that one conference game a year had to air on Longhorn Network, and I just hated it. You couldn't even pay for a subscription either. You just had to live in Texas in order to watch it. So yeah, I didn't get to watch this game. Also, SpongeBob and Patrick were right.
Hey, Patrick, what am I now?
Stupid?
No, I'm Texas.
What's the difference?
Anyway, yeah, Iowa State would go on to lose to Texas, and Purdy actually got a little dinged up in this game, but he was ready to go for their season finale against Kansas State. In the fourth quarter, Kansas State led the Cyclones by 3 scores, and it seemed like just another loss was inevitable. In typical Iowa State fashion, they would start off the year good, or at least the middle of the year, they would get really good, and then they'd lose. But then, this happened.
The timeout to the tight end. It's a touchdown. Sam C. Buckner, the senior.
The senior on senior day making a big play.
Now Otis Coleman dial up, 3rd and 6. Pressure. Ball is loose. Mike Rose. Montgomery. In again.
You got to throw the ball here, but you always have to be cognizant of Skylar Thompson. Mobile quarterback, he can escape with his legs.
The Wildcats have to convert to Dalton Schoen.
Iowa State's 7-4 record unfortunately was not good enough to make the Big 12 championship game, but they did play during conference championship week, and it was against an in-state Division II team, Drake. And yeah, they got the win. Disregarding how close this was, I try to block this game out of my memory as much as possible. There was a blizzard, okay? Their opener got canceled due to a rain delay, so yeah, let's just move on from this one. That's definitely not important. Iowa State's 8 wins meant they were bowl eligible for the 2nd year in a row and were matched up against Washington State. I don't think you understand, that's a really huge accomplishment for them. That team they were playing was really good though, as they were led by senior quarterback Gardner Minshew and legendary head coach Mike Leach, rest in peace. This was a really good game, but Washington State would barely come out on top. Purdy did throw for over 300 yards in this one, but he also threw 2 picks and no touchdowns. I don't want to talk about it. Although it wasn't ISU's best showing, there was a lot of hope that since the team now had stability at quarterback, they could finally take a leap in 2019. Now, they would end up losing 2 of their best skill position players, David Montgomery and Hakeem Butler, to the NFL, but they had some replacements ready to come in. 2019 was about to be a magical year. Oh, pretend like I didn't just say that. In defense of Iowa State, that record is deceiving, okay? every single one of their regular season losses were only by 1 score, except for the Kansas State game, but that was only by 10, so my point still stands. They won a really close game against UNI to start the year, and I mean really close, like 3 overtimes close. Now, it should have probably been a bad omen for the rest of the year that it took 3 overtimes to beat frickin' UNI, but I was still cautiously optimistic about this season.
On this return, Jones and Milton standing back at their own 20. As he tried to field it. Yeah. Hawkeyes recover it. It's Devontae Young, and it looked like a cyclone ran into his own man. Well, I've been a returner, and when you're a returner and you see a short kick like that with a low trajectory.
Well, yeah, a lot of it went away after that. However, Brock Purdy the very next week would go on to have the greatest performance out of any quarterback in school history. Purdy would tie the record for touchdowns in a game with 6 total touchdowns, okay? 3 through the air and 3 on the ground. Man, he's like Cam Newton out there. He also threw for a career high of 435 yards and completed 77% of his passes in a 72-22 spanking of Louisiana Monroe. However, this is the Iowa State football team we're talking about, so they would take the momentum from this win and go on to lose to Matt, who are you? Rule and Baylor in a 1-score game. So, Iowa State started off 2-2, and it seemed like once again the team was on a downward trajectory after the month of September. But what everyone seems to forget is that there is an entire month where everything you thought you knew just goes out the freaking window. And that month is Brocktober. That's right, our guy went scorched earth again in Brocktober. In just 4 games, Purdy threw for 1,236 yards, completed nearly 70% of his passes, and accounted for 10 total touchdowns, as Iowa State would go 3-1 in those games. It's also worth noting that Iowa State really struggled to get the run game going all season until the West Virginia game, where a true freshman running back by the name of Breece Hall came out of nowhere and rushed for 132 yards and 3 touchdowns on only 26 carries. That guy might make the NFL someday. Speaking of the NFL, let's fast forward a little bit to the 2023 NFC Championship game. Purdy and the 49ers were in Philadelphia for a game against the Eagles where they would face off for the NFC Championship. And, as you know, of course, Brock ended up getting hurt in this game and the Eagles would go on to win. Yeah, whoopee. We'll talk about this game more later, but the most significant part of this game for the sake of this video was the quarterback matchup. It was Brock Purdy against Jalen Hurts. But what if I told you it wasn't their first matchup against each other? On November 9th, 2019, the Iowa State Cyclones traveled to Norman to take on the Oklahoma Sooners. 2 years prior, Iowa State upset Oklahoma in their own stadium, which at the time was the defining win of the Matt Campbell era. Fast forward to November of 2019, and Iowa State was coming off of a rare Brocktober loss against Oklahoma State at home, and a one-loss Oklahoma team that they were playing was looking to run the table and make their 3rd straight college football playoff appearance. Hurts in Oklahoma at one point jumped out to a 28-7 lead in the second quarter and entered halftime with a 35-14 lead. It seemed like this game was going to be pretty anticlimactic and Oklahoma would just run away with this one. But, as if you need any reminder, you can never count out the ultimate underdog.
Swing it outside to Hall, who stays on his feet through initial contact and gets a first down. 1st and goal from inside the 5. Hall into the backfield. They're running with his direction on the option play. Purdy keeps it untouched. Off the left side. Gets a couple of blocks from Lamb. Springing him free. Touchdown. Toss it to Chase Allen. The tight end is inside the 15, 1st down and a gain of 29. 4th quarter begins with 1st and goal for Iowa State after the unsportsmanlike penalty call on Radley Hiles. They fake it and toss over the top for a touchdown with Chase Allen. The right tackle, R.J. Proctor, comes into the game, plays left tackle. Hurts out of a tight pocket to the sideline. Lamb gets away from Datron Young, loses the ball. Who's got it? Iowa State says they do. And with 14:26 left to go in this one, the Cyclones have it. Down 5. 4 minutes left to go as Purdy retreats with his eyes downfield, steps up in the pocket. He'll take off. He makes a man miss. Stands tall, delivers to a wide open man. It's a touchdown. Hurts looking to throw on 3rd and 7. He's retreating with Spears chasing him, and he throws an interception. Lawrence White picks it off. Purdy scrambles. He'll tuck it, makes a move. He's going to get a first down. They snap it with a minute left. Purdy given time. Delivers sideline. He's got lofting end zone. Kohler! Touchdown! Purdy gets rid of it. That ball is picked off. Hoping for one last gasp if they can get it with an onside. That's hit hard to the wrong guy. CeeDee Lamb's got it. And Oklahoma will move to 8.
So, Iowa State lost their 4th one-score game of the season, and if you're keeping track, Iowa State only lost 4 games up to this point. So yeah, at least they were back home this week again. I guess that's a good thing. Let's see who they're playing. Oh no, not Texas again. At least this one isn't on Longhorn Network.
Our score. Deshaunte Jones in motion. Purdy under pressure. Spins out and throws. He's got a man wide open. Got him. Deshaunte Jones. And they're not going to catch him. Touchdown. Iowa State right out of the gate, 75 yards. 0 of 1 today. They go for it on 4th and goal. Ellinger, plenty of time. Now flushed out. Throws to the end zone. Touchdown, Longhorns, Malcolm Epps. This is from 36 yards out. Connor Asali. 4 seconds left on the clock for the win. He's got ice in those veins. Iowa State finally wins a close one.
They actually did it. Iowa State won a close game, and they were bowl eligible. Also, can we just acknowledge how good that throw was by Purdy? I mean, I know Deshaunte Jones was wide open, but Brock's escape was just insane. And it's probably my favorite highlight from his career. I have lots of them. Iowa State would go on to beat a really bad Kansas team the next week in a game that really shouldn't have been that close. After that, they would end the season on a sour note, as they would lose to Kansas State by 10, ending the 1-possession loss streak. A 7-5 record definitely was not good enough to make the Big 12 championship game that was really starting to elude them. But it was good enough to earn them a matchup against Notre Dame, oh lord, in the Camping World Bowl, and oh my goodness! I remember rushing home from basketball practice that morning to watch this game and then being so disappointed. Ian Book and Chase Claypool absolutely went off in this one, and Iowa State's offense had their worst showing of the season. This game was terrible. The 2019 season was ultimately a disappointment for Iowa State. In 2018, even though they finished with only one more win, it seemed like progress overall was actually being made, and their first 3 losses that season were before Purdy actually saw significant playing time. In 2019, yes, there were a lot of one-score losses, but I think the 2 losses to end the year really put a bad taste in people's mouths. However, Purdy had the best year of his career so far. He threw for 27 touchdowns and only 9 picks, and he rushed for 8 touchdowns. So although he himself was progressing really well, was the rest of the team? Were 7 to 8 wins a year really the ceiling for a Matt Campbell-led Iowa State team? I mean, it was a lot better than the 2 and 3 win seasons before he got there, but I feel like with the talent of this team, there was just another gear that they could reach, especially with Corn Jesus at the helm. The most realistic path to Iowa State taking that next leap was to make an appearance in the game that had eluded them the past 3 seasons, and that is the Big 12 championship game. Would the 2020 season finally be the year Iowa State puts it all together and Brock Purdy takes another leap and perhaps puts himself into Heisman Trophy contention? Well, you're going to find out in part 2. See ya.
You mean we can't say anything bad about dumb old Texas? No, you can't!
Oh, then can we say people from Texas are dumb?
No, you can't say nothing about Texas!